revenge with Karen. The moment the champagne bottle exploded and sprayed over the mounted flat screen in the break room, I already knew they weren't going to pay me. Not in money, not in credit, not in basic human decency. The system I built, line by line, sleepless night by sleepless night, just hit 400% above projected traffic. Real-time usage metrics rolled across the monitor like fireworks. API uptime flawless, dashboards responsive, cross-departmental reporting humming like a goddamn Tesla coil. The product was alive, breathing, efficient, stable. That wasn't luck, that was me. People clapped. Marketing posted celebratory selfies. Sales handed out those corny foil balloons that say #goat. I stood off to the side, sipping lukewarm La Croix and watching my own work being passed around like a corporate party trick. I wasn't mad, not yet, just tired. Then the manager strolled in, Don, with his $9 haircut and permanent smirk, and patted me on the shoulder like a dog who didn't bite the guests. "Hey, quick thing," he said, like it was an afterthought. "Your bonus isn't going through this cycle. Policy stuff, you get it." I blinked. "Policy? Yeah, upper levels are cracking down on post-launch bonuses," he said, already turning to walk away. "It's not personal, not personal. Like my weekends spent babysitting database failures weren't personal. Like the clause I negotiated in our licensing contract, line 13.2, subsection D, third-party retention condition, wasn't damn personal. Like the blood in my coffee wasn't personal. I didn't respond, didn't scream, didn't pull a Jerry Maguire and flip the printer off its tray. I nodded once and said, "Got it." What I really got was this: they thought I was replaceable. The woman who rebuilt their data, stacked from the ashes of a contractor's half-finished garbage heap, could be filed under cost containment. That policy was an acceptable insult to someone who literally negotiated the terms of legal use for the company's analytics vendor. That I wouldn't notice the way Don flinched when he said it. That I'd just keep showing up, smiling, like a cog in the machine that I built. I walked back to my desk. Noise of the room dimmed like someone turned down the treble on reality. My inbox was full of congrats. And can you hop on a quick call? Requests. Everyone wanted something: metrics, charts, proof the system was real and not just smoke and mirrors. I gave them what they wanted. No edge in my voice, no delay in delivery. But something inside me clicked into place. Not rage, not revenge, not yet. Just a calm, clinical understanding. They were now using a system whose legal operating status was tied to one line in a contract that no one but me had bothered to read. And that line had one condition: my employment. So when Don handed me that non-answer and walked away like I was lucky to still have a badge, he wasn't just stiffing me a bonus. He was pulling the pin on the very grenade I'd buried in the foundation of their precious platform. All I had to do now was let gravity take its course. I didn't tell anyone, didn't run to HR, didn't slack my bestie in legal. I just opened my encrypted folder, found the PDF, highlighted the clause, and stared at it for a long moment. I remembered the meeting with the vendor, remembered how hard I had to fight to get that clause included. I wasn't even supposed to be negotiating. Don had dropped the ball, of course, but I stepped in. Spent 2 weeks wrangling red lines and vendor-side counsel just to protect myself, just in case they ever decided to screw me like this. I went back to my inbox, sent out 3 high-priority reports, answered a couple of technical questions from product, and scheduled a sync for Monday. I smiled, waved to the intern, laughed at a joke I didn't hear. Then I opened a fresh email, addressed it to legal, typed 4 words in the subject line: FYI potential issue. Monday morning smelled like stale donuts and denial. The confetti had barely been vacuumed out of the hallway rugs when the email blasts began. Subject lines like incredible teamwork and historic win for the org, pinging inboxes like tiny corporate fireworks. And in each one, the same oily fingerprints. Senior leadership patting themselves on the back for my work. Official postmortem dropped around 10:06 a.m. A neat PDF dressed in charts I designed, colored and branding I customized, stitched together with metrics pulled directly from my system's spine. There was a 2-page summary of the architecture, written in third person like it was discovered in a field instead of engineered over 2 years of unpaid weekends. And nowhere did it say my name. The authors, product lead, VP of Ops, and Don. Fucking Don. The man who once asked me if Python was the snake one had signed off on a technical overview that included phrases I wrote verbatim in Slack 6 weeks ago. My name was gone. My contributions reduced to vague references about cross-functional input. I wasn't a person. I was a bullet point. I didn't say a word. No passive-aggressive emoji reactions. No just looping myself in here replies. Opened a new local folder and labeled it simply Insurance. In it, I started dragging copies, Slack threads, design drafts, version histories, architecture diagrams with timestamps. Not in anger, in preparation. A war doesn't start with a cannon blast. It starts with someone quietly sharpening a knife. By noon, the murmurs started. One of the DevOps guys asked if anyone had cleared the final vendor clauses with legal before the system went live. Some weird stuff in Appendix D, he said casually, sipping from a world's okayest engineer mug. I kept my eyes on my screen, cleaning up post-launch cash reports. A project manager replied, "Legal probably skimmed it, right? I mean, nothing's come up." I smiled. Faintly. The kind of smile you give a magician right before he realizes the rabbit's chewing through his sleeve. I took my lunch late, around 1:45, when the break room cleared out. Leftover cake was still there, dry chocolate sheet cake, with frosting that had crusted over like spackle. Someone had written success in red icing across the top. The U looked like it had been drawn by a toddler mid-tantrum. Appropriate. I sat by the window, not hungry, just absorbing, watching. HR walked by laughing with someone from sales. Product was already talking Q4 goals like we hadn't just survived a firestorm. Don strutted by with his coffee, talking loudly on Bluetooth about centralizing insights. He didn't look at me. He wouldn't. I wasn't supposed to exist outside the code, and yet, that afternoon I pulled up the license again. Not just the clause I highlighted last week, but the whole thing, every page, every signature, every timestamp. I knew exactly how it would play out if I needed to drop it. Not just breach of contract level chaos, but system-wide blackout chaos, kind of thing investors ask about on emergency earnings calls. The kind of thing compliance teams refer to as non-recoverable exposure. I didn't need to swing yet. I just needed to wait. Let the silence stretch. Let Don forget what he skimmed. Let leadership polish their boots on my back a little longer. Let the rope tighten. Because the moment they made it official, unpaid, unacknowledged, erased, that clause would activate like a tripwire. I left at 6, not a second later, just like any other day. But I walked out holding a hard drive in my bag, encrypted, time-stamped, complete with a backup of the infrastructure dependency tree. Because when the system fails, they'll need a miracle. And I've already decided I won't be in the building when they beg for one. The license lived in a folder no one else remembered, not even the procurement team. Labeled it with one of those boring file names that practically screamed ignore me to anyone without a working understanding of versioning law. ANKS 34 license final executed v7. PDF. It had been sitting there since the day I signed it, tucked into a digital drawer like a loaded gun no one thought I'd ever use. But I remembered. God, I remembered every line. It was a Wednesday. Everyone was still high on caffeine and ego from the launch. Don had started calling the system our baby in meetings, his voice taking on this weird paternal tone like he'd been there for more than 5 Slack approvals, and a lunch where he asked what a data warehouse was. They were already talking about expanding it to other departments, maybe even monetizing the metrics. A roadmap was forming, one built entirely on the spine of a platform I had architected, and they still hadn't paid me, so I opened the file. The clause was exactly where I remembered it. Appendix D, subsection 3, paragraph B. Single sentence. One legal needle buried in a haystack of whereas and therefore. In the event that the designated technical lead, as defined in Addendum B, i.e., my name, is removed from compensated employment status for any period exceeding 72 hours, this license agreement shall be considered null and void. All associated access rights terminated without further notice. No gray area, no ambiguity, just pure black and white kill switch. That clause didn't exist by accident. It was born out of spite. 2 years ago, Don and his buddies tried to outsource the analytics rebuild to a contractor in Austin, someone who bragged about 10x engineering and thought documentation was optional. I caught the Slack messages by mistake, were ready to cut me out entirely. Said I was too protective, overly opinionated, and my salary was a cost inefficiency. So I made a call to the vendor. Explained the situation. Said we needed stronger language, made them put my name in the contract. If they wanted to use their software, I had to be paid. Not just employed, compensated. I wanted to make sure they'd never get to erase me quietly. And now, we're standing on a legal landmine with both feet. I minimized the window, took a sip of my coffee, and opened Outlook. Drafted a new message to our internal legal counsel. No drama, no warning shots, just 4 lines. Subject, FYI potential issue. Hi Rebecca, looping you in on the analytics license, specifically Appendix D. There may be compliance implications if current compensation structure isn't aligned. Attaching for your review. Attach the contract. PDF. Original signature timestamped. Let the document speak for itself. Then I hit send, nothing dramatic, no bells, no fire alarms. But as soon as I clicked that little paper airplane icon, the entire game changed. Because now, it wasn't just about feelings. It wasn't about fairness or recognition. It was about legality. It was about governance. It was about how fast a company can fall apart when the one person who actually read the contract decides to stop protecting them from their own laziness. I didn't watch for the read receipt. Didn't refresh to see if she replied. I just leaned back, stretched my neck, and listened to the hum of the servers my code still fed. They could keep pretending I didn't matter. But now, every breath the system took was technically illegal, and I was the only one who could revive it. First sign was the silence. Not absence of noise silence, targeted silence. The kind that spreads in pockets. The kind that's engineered. Legal pinged Dawn on Thursday morning. I know this because Rebecca, our lead counsel, CC'd me in the message, just a brief, polite ask for clarification around the analytics licensing structure. Following up on Appendix D, she wrote, with all the dispassionate calm of a surgeon prepping a scalpel. Dawn didn't respond. Not immediately. Not even after she followed up with just want to confirm current compensation alignment to ensure license compliance. He left it unread for 6 hours. I watched his Slack status bounce between active and in a meeting, the little green dot flickering like a heartbeat. Then something curious happened. I got removed from the Data Ops Slack channel. No warning, no explanation. Just poof. 1 second I was there, eating a thread about integrating new endpoints. The next I was staring at you no longer have access to this workspace. Like I'd been voted off the island. Same thing happened with the morning stand-up invite. It vanished from my calendar. I only noticed when I saw a screen share notification pop up from the Zoom room I was supposed to be in. It blinked, then disappeared. They were icing me out. Don probably thought he was being strategic, contain the fallout, limit my exposure, start restructuring without the headache of confrontation. Maybe he thought if he starved me of access, I'd give up, walk away, quietly fade into the HR archives like so many others. Instead, I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it, Critical Dependencies Analytics v3.6. I started listing everything, daily sales dashboards, powered by my pipeline. Customer churn reports for the board, my Python scripts, real-time ops monitoring, runs through my Kafka streams, forecasting tools for the CFO's quarterly call, pulled from the models I deployed, data warehouse transformations, scheduled with the cron jobs I handcrafted during a blizzard last February while Dawn was WFH with spotty Wi-Fi. By lunchtime, I had 43 systems linked to my codebase. By end of day, 68. By midnight, 92. Each one got its own line. Each one had a short description, timestamp, owner, and failure condition. I added a final column, breakpoint without license. Spoiler, most of them would collapse within 72 hours of a vendor audit. Don's gamble wasn't just arrogant, it was suicidal. And still, no reply from him. No response to legal, no course correction. Just silence and soft isolation. They were betting I'd go quietly, that I didn't have receipts, that I wasn't vindictive enough, or powerful enough, or legally insulated enough to pull the trigger. What they didn't realize is I built the damn trigger. I installed the wiring. I wrote the clause. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to storm into a conference room with a folder and a grudge. All I had to do was wait. I spent Friday morning exporting backup logs, storing dependency maps, and encrypting everything under a secure key stored on an offline drive. I didn't want revenge. I wanted evidence. If they came groveling, I wanted the power to say no. If they came attacking, I wanted to gut them in 3 clicks. The fire hadn't reached them yet, but the smoke was coming through the vents. The meeting wasn't on anyone's calendar. No subject line, no prep doc, no Slack pings. Just a string of quiet shoulder taps from legal, Rebecca pulling a handful of names into conference room C like she was assembling a jury before a sentencing. Inside, Dawn, red-faced and bored. Someone from HR chewing gum like she was at a high school pep rally. A finance analyst fresh out of grad school who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Rebecca sat at the end, laptop open, fingers steepled like she was praying or about to sentence someone to hell. I wasn't invited, of course not, but I didn't need to be, because I already knew what file was open on her screen. The clause, Appendix D, the noose. Rebecca had been digging, kind of digging only lawyers with good instincts and bad sleep schedules do. She'd read the contract, actually read it. Understood what Dawn hadn't, that the license wasn't just a formality. It was a living contract, a heartbeat agreement. And the heart, that was me. She started calmly. I want to verify something, she said, her voice low, like a bomb technician talking through a wire snip. Is my name currently being compensated in accordance with her employment agreement? HR spoke first, like it was a softball question. Yes, of course. She's active, hasn't been terminated. Rebecca didn't flinch. That wasn't the question. Has she been paid? A pause. Finance flipped through a spreadsheet, frowning. Her Q2 performance bonus is still under review. I don't see a disbursement yet. Dawn jumped in too fast. Eager, we're still evaluating performance metrics tied to the rollout. I mean, the team did great, obviously, but there's some policy-level stuff around post-launch incentive triggers that Rebecca held up a hand. Slow, surgical. Then she closed the laptop. Not slammed, not passive-aggressive, just a quiet, final closing, like a lid on a coffin. She looked at them, really looked at them, and said, if she's unpaid, we're in breach. HR blinked. Of what? Becca pointed to the laptop, now shut. Clause 13.2, subsection D. The license agreement that gives us legal access to 97% of our analytics infrastructure. The clause that requires my name to be in compensated employment status in order for that license to remain valid. Dawn tried to laugh. That's just boilerplate. No, Rebecca said, so softly it made the air go cold. It's not. The room went still. Rebecca leaned forward, elbows on the table. If this isn't fixed, we're out of compliance. Which means our access to the system is illegal. Which means every dashboard, every report, every investor call using that data becomes exposure. Which means you, she turned to Dawn, need to explain why you failed to process a compensation clause that has operational kill switch language attached. Dawn looked like a man slowly realizing his parachute was actually a gym bag. I didn't know, he mumbled. You were in the loop, she replied. You signed the disbursement delay form. You authorized the review freeze. The finance kid cleared his throat. We thought it was standard. Nobody mentioned, Rebecca cut him off. It's not standard, it's negligence. Silence, long and heavy. Then she stood up. I'm escalating this to the CEO, she said. If she's not paid by end of day, we will be in breach. And if that happens, I'll have to file a formal notification with our outside counsel and the vendor's compliance team. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. And if you think she's bluffing, she added without looking back, you should read the rest of the contract. She wrote most of it. Behind the glass wall, someone from IT walked past holding a flickering monitor. Outside, the world kept spinning. But inside that room, the fire had landed, just didn't realize yet that it had already started burning through the floor. It started with a missed email. 3:12 a.m., the automated report for global sales reconciliation didn't land in the CFO's inbox. No bounce-back, no error trail, just nothing. At 3:34, an intern on the East Coast shift pinged IT with the kind of innocent panic only interns can pull off. Hey, are the dashboards down, or am I just dumb lol? By 4 o'clock, the DevOps group chat was a war zone. No one could access the analytics cluster. The container logs were clean, no deploys overnight, no infra outages. But the API keys were throwing 400 threes from the vendor. Then came the message. Not from me, not from legal. From the system. Every executive dashboard, board metrics, investor KPIs, churn heat maps, customer lifetime value projections, freshed with a single crimson banner. License unrecognized. Contact account holder. That was the clause. That was the line in Appendix D flipping its middle finger to every one of them, because they hadn't paid me. By 6:45, Dawn's voicemail was full. So was his inbox. So was his soul, probably. People started hovering near his door like kids watching a house fire. I watched the whole thing from the break room, feet up, sipping burnt office coffee from a chipped mug that said data never sleeps. Ironic, I wasn't gloating, I wasn't even smiling. I just existed, calm, present, a ghost in the machine. By 7:30, IT had escalated to legal. Legal had escalated to Rebecca. Rebecca didn't ping me, she didn't have to. By 8:02, she was outside the CEO's office, black binder in hand. I could see her through the glass wall, speaking low and fast, face pale but composed. The CEO looked confused, then concerned, then still. By 8:15, the emergency meeting was called. No Zoom, no calendar, in person only. The subject line on the invite said one word, urgent. I was not invited again, but that didn't matter. My name was already in the room. Don tried to spin it. Of course he did. Said it was a technical hiccup, a vendor-side handshake misfire. Rebecca slid the contract across the table. Clause 13.2. Subsection D. Termination upon non-compensated status of the designated technical lead. The room was quiet. The CEO asked, "Is this real?" Rebecca just nodded. "Is she still on payroll?" Finance shook their head. Don tried to talk, got waved off like a mosquito. I was still in the break room, still sipping, watching someone from marketing sob quietly into a granola bar. Second alert hit the screens. Data pipeline suspended due to license breach. You could feel the panic start to rip through the walls. Because this wasn't a bug. This was compliance. This was exposure. Every dashboard, every report, every investor-ready projection they'd prepped for the quarterly call was now, legally speaking, inadmissible. They could fire me, sure. They just couldn't run the company after they did. I opened my laptop, clicked refresh, watched their world freeze in real time. Then I finished my coffee. It tasted better than usual. The room was full, but no one breathed. Not when Rebecca opened the black binder. Not when she clicked her pen with that little snap that always sounded like a warning shot. Not even when she said the name of the clause aloud, like a priest reciting scripture at the gallows. Appendix D. Clause 13.2. Subsection D, she said, eyes scanning the page, but voice aimed directly at Don. Termination upon the unpaid status of the designated technical lead. The projector was off. The blinds were drawn. No charts, no slide decks, no spin. Just printed paper and the collective heart rate of 5 executives realizing they'd stepped on a landmine. Rebecca looked up, calm as a storm that already passed through. "Please tell me you paid her," she said, eyes locked on Don like a blade at his throat. Don stammered. She's employed, active status. She hasn't been terminated. That's not what I asked," Rebecca replied, her tone colder than corporate laminate. Was she paid? A long pause. Then finally, from the junior finance analyst in the corner, her Q2 bonus was withheld. Still under internal review. Rebecca blinked once. Closed the binder with surgical precision. Then flipped it back open to a new page, highlighted, underlined, notarized. Then, she said, "Oi, steady, you better call your investors." Silence detonated in the room. The CFO visibly paled. The VP of sales started rubbing his temples like he could physically squeeze the consequences out. The CEO didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the paper like it might catch fire on its own. Don opened his mouth again, tried to laugh. "Come on, this is just exaggerated legalese, right? These kinds of clauses are rarely enforced." Rebecca cut in. "Enforceable." The vendor confirmed it. "I contacted their compliance lead this morning. They cross-referenced her employment status with their database access logs. If she's unpaid, we are operating without a license." He tried again. "There's got to be a grace period." "There's not," she said, flipping to another page. 72 hours. That window expired last night at 11:43 p.m. Another silence. This one darker. Rebecca stood, adjusted her blazer, looked at the CEO, not Don. "I strongly recommend we issue retroactive compensation immediately and prepare a disclosure for the board and our investors. The breach affects not just operations, but every downstream report built from that pipeline." The CEO exhaled hard through his nose. "Is there a fix?" Rebecca didn't answer right away. She just stared at him, then said, "You had one. You decided her bonus wasn't worth the policy exception." Don was now visibly sweating. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for his water bottle. I didn't know," he muttered. "No one told me the clause was real." "You signed the contract," Rebecca replied, already turning toward the door. And she flagged it, in writing, twice. That's when they realized this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some fluke of paperwork or miscommunication. This was a professional system, designed by someone they thought was disposable, held together by a clause none of them had read because it wasn't in a bullet point presentation. Rebecca paused at the door. I'll draft the disclosure. Let me know if you want me to include your names." Then she walked out, just like that. No gavel, no smoke, just reality settling like dust. Inside the room, no one moved. Outside, the platform remained dead. Dashboards blank, numbers gone, truth undeniable, and me? I was down the hall, leaning against the vending machine, watching the power drain from the people who thought I didn't matter. No gloating, no smirk, just silence. Let them feel it. By noon, the building had the quiet hum of a funeral home. Phones still rang, but nobody answered. The Slack channels were graveyards of confused questions and radio silence. The CEO's assistant power-walked past my desk 3 times in 15 minutes, carrying a laptop and what looked like a half-eaten banana, uttering oh God," like it was a prayer. The implosion had begun. Investor dashboards, inaccessible. Customer churn analytics, gone. Forecasting reports, pulling data so stale it still referenced a discontinued product line. People were rebooting routers like it would resurrect the system. Marketing blamed IT. IT blamed the vendor. The vendor sent back a single, brutal line in an email. "Your license is invalid due to breach. Please contact your designated account lead for reinstatement." The account lead was me. I wasn't watching the chaos with popcorn. I was working on something else, cleaning up some side scripts for a freelance contract I had lined up. They'd be paying me in crypto and respect, already a better deal than what this place offered. Around 12:40 p.m., a junior staffer from HR, a kid named Tyler with fear in his eyes and deodorant stains down both armpits, walked over holding a printed form like it was a hostage note. "Hey, Don was wondering if maybe you could help us draft some, like, transition documentation," he asked, voice cracking mid-sentence. I looked up, blinked once. "You mean documentation for a system I can't legally access anymore?" I asked. Tyler turned red. "Well, yeah, but just like, so the team can keep things moving." I took a slow sip of my tea, then said evenly, "Well, Don, I'm not available. And next time, don't send someone who doesn't understand what the word breach means." He nodded too fast, like his head was trying to escape the room before the rest of him. He shuffled off without a word. I went back to my terminal and quietly deleted my personal credentials from every sandbox instance. Not in malice, just in closure. Meanwhile, HR made their move. They tried to process a backdated bonus, not even subtle about it. The timestamp on the payroll adjustment showed as 11:04 a.m., hours after the final deadline from the clause. The payment was labeled manual adjustment discretionary. They thought they could slap a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and call it compliance. Rebecca wasn't having it. She sent a company-wide email, short, brutal, bulletproof, to all leadership. Retroactive compensation does not resolve breach status per contract clause 13.2d. Timestamp payment logs confirm violation. The platform remains unlicensed. Disclosure to vendor and investors will proceed. There it was, in black and white, from legal, no sugar, no spin. And still, Don tried to blame internal miscommunication. I overheard him in the hallway later, telling someone from finance that maybe she could have just come to me directly instead of escalating through legal. Like I hadn't. Twice. Like I hadn't sent that first email marked FYI potential issue. The stupidity wasn't surprising. What shocked me was how committed they were to it. They had a flaming meteor headed for their quarterly report, and their plan was to hand me a Word doc template and hope I'd play ball. But I wasn't playing anymore. I wasn't even on the field. I walked past the conference room at 2 p.m. Inside, panic, 4 people on a call, one crying, one pacing. Don gesturing wildly at a spreadsheet that was nothing but #ref, errors. I didn't slow down, didn't look in. Just smiled faintly at the vending machine as I passed. Twix was out, still more reliable than their leadership. The call came at 6:42 p.m., just as I was pouring myself a glass of wine and feeding the cat. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, direct dial, no caller ID mask, no assistant buffer. That meant one thing. I answered with one word, yes. There was a pause, long enough to hear his breath catch. Then, what will it take? No greeting, no introduction. Just gravel in the throat and desperation wrapped in a necktie. It was the CEO, not his proxy, not his EA, not some groveling PR script. Him. I walked to my desk, sat down, and opened the folder labeled "They're Going to Beg." Inside, a PDF, drafted by my attorney, titled Reinstatement and Buyout Proposal Executed Upon License Breach. We'd prepared it 2 weeks ago, before launch, before Don got cute. before HR thought policy was more important than person. I didn't respond right away. Let the silence stretch like piano wire, and I clicked forward. The subject line read, "Your offer window 24 hours." The document contained 3 bullet points. Immediate wire transfer of unpaid compensation, plus 40% breach penalty buyout of license clause for mid-six figures, executed through outside counsel written statement, acknowledging contribution. To be read at the next company-wide all-hands. I heard him open it. You could feel the moment the number hit his optic nerve. Nothing for 10 seconds. Then, quietly, "We should have just paid you the damn bonus." I didn't say "I told you so," didn't laugh, didn't throw confetti. I just said, "You've got until close of business tomorrow." Then the vendor gets the breach escalation. Click, no goodbye, no theatrics. I sat back, took a sip of wine, and watched my email for a wire confirmation. The dashboard stayed dark all night. The board didn't get their Q3 burn rate report. Investors kept refreshing pages that now read, "Error 402, license authorization required." And me, I watered my plants, watched the sunset, felt the weight of silence, that beautiful, golden silence, when the system you built finally speaks for you louder than any speech could. They didn't just break a contract. They proved I was the only one holding the damn place together. And now they were paying for it, on my terms. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.